All right, viewers, welcome to a very special edition of the Bronco Country Roundup. I'm joined by former Boise State left tackle Rees Odhiambo, and with me is Chris Van Sickle, as always. And so, Rees, just get us started. How are you? How is life? What's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing? I'll say life is good at this point. Football is always very unexpected how it kind of turns out. So I had my ups and downs just kind of facing injuries. And once I got done playing, I had a lot of injuries that I couldn't play with anymore. I fractured my sternum and messed my fingers up. And so I spent the last couple of years just kind of working, getting surgery and healing up from that and just kind of getting my body kind of back to functioning again. And that's kind of been the last few years of my life. Apart from that, I can't say I look like an old lineman anymore, but I try to stay in good shape now. But it's
Yeah,
just
you're looking great, dude.
Looking skinny,
it's a
man.
long way from it's a long way from being a 315 nowadays.
Yeah, and you saw a good physical therapist, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Did your home program, all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm
Perfect.
trying to take care of all of that, and that's kind of what helps having that knowledge and just knowing how to make sure I keep improving because staying still and staying stiff doesn't get anything better. And so I try to make sure I stay active and get the help I can from the professionals around me.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So just to, I guess, get us started here, you played left tackle for Boise State from what was it, 2012 to 2015? Is that, do I have those years right, or is it
yeah,
2011? It's 12 to 15.
yeah.
Okay,
I
so
joined in 11, but I didn't get to start until going forward at that point forward.
got it. And so for the layperson at home, like just the left tackle position, like what really goes into it? Because like generally speaking, like all we really hear is like, oh, just block the person in front of you, right? It's a little more complicated than that. So what goes into playing left tackle?
Pretty much left tackle for the most part, your quarterback is going to be a right-handed quarterback. So left tackle is kind of designated that you're blocking somebody's blind side, and it's a position where you're blocking the side where they can't see, and they're expecting you to completely have like a blind faith fall to just know that hey, this guy's got to have my back and got to look out for me. And it's the hardest position to have because that guy behind you doesn't get to see what's coming. And so if he sees things in front of him with the right tackle, he could adjust and move out to help you out. But from the other side, he has no clue what's coming. You got to be more diligent about your job and be more athletic than anybody else on the line to be able to just be able to handle what typically comes from that side. And if the quarterback is left-handed, then the right tackle will be the blind side protector. But for majority of everybody who plays football, they're right-handed quarterbacks, and so the left tackle is going to be the blind side guy to worry about things you can never see.
So you kind of already alluded to some of that, but where are the main differences just at any real level between the left tackle and the right tackle position, like the main responsibility, whether that's run blocking or pass blocking?
So at that, based on the coach's scheme, it will depend if you're the point of attack based on if they trust you to run block to your side or not. That's a big determining factor if the ball will ever be towards you or not. And opponents and everybody looks at that to see which side that we run the ball towards. It shows you which way your strength is. And between college and just how you play, the big differences really comes down in the athleticism that you face. Everything gets better. Everyone just keeps improving over and over. And so as you get better and you improve and you rise up, there's less errors to be able to be made. That I would say it makes it very difficult to just try and think you could go line up and play and block anyone else and you get the job done. As you keep rising up, the person in front of you gets better. They're more technical in their skills. So when they come fire off on you, they have like an idea in their mind of how to beat you versus just trying to run up and hit you and hopefully like they can dominate you with their physicality. As you rise up, your coaches and everybody is teaching you how to be more smarter about how you play the game.
And speaking of run blocking, I seem to remember Jay Ajayi running your way quite a few times on his way to the end zone. And was it him or was it Grant Hedrick that you picked up in the end zone, or did you do both?
I'd always I pick up him and Grant, but for the most part, me and Jay had like a signature thing we would do, just kind of cross our arms and see each other every time he scores, and everybody else was trying to pick up who was a lot lighter. But boy, it was a great time because at the time, once I knew how to play the position, I got a lot of confidence. I would always nag my old line coach, Coach Huff. He's not in Seattle, but I always nagged him all the time to run the ball my way and give me that opportunity to just show that, hey, like I can be trusted. Because you kind of want that as you play. To have everybody know that they could trust and count on you is a very big deal. And the more you can prove it, and then they know they really can trust you, and you're like you're just not saying the words, but you'll be able to back it up. I always wanted to be able to show that. And so when it comes to left tackle, and my first time loving it was like watching the Colts with Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis. If you see those two components as a D end, that's two D ends you face. I was like, yeah, I want to be able to play that position and be able to block guys like that and be able to be successful in that. And so when I first met, I got recruited to Boise. My first thing I brought up was like, yeah, like I need you to help me be as great, so I could be have the ability to block guys who are just that, who are as good as that, as Dwight Freeney was, especially in his heyday, whether it was a bull rush, the spin move. And it's just so funny because then I got to Seattle, and in his later years, I got to block and practice with him. But then, like as a kid growing up, and like these are the guys you like have a thing, like these are guys you're a fan for. It was really awesome to hang out with Dwight and a lot of those older guys. Like when they came through, I think we had Devin Hester also. Like you see those guys you grow up with, and you're like, whoa, like he still got it.
They signed Hester towards the end for like a playoff run or something, I think.
Yeah. And so I would do special teams with him, and I go do the two linemen that run down and turn around and make I think it's illegal now, but at the time when it wasn't illegal, when the two linemen were allowed to make a wedge, run down, and every time I run down and go back, man, he would just bolt past you, and I was like, man, and this you got to think about, like, he's older at this point, like he's about ready to retire, and when you saw him run across the field, he was the fastest guy practically in the building. It's scary, like when somebody just has it, they just got it, and you can't like fake you can't fake speed when you're born with it.
You can't teach speed. I think he's on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time this year. Devin Hester.
Yeah,
I think he's gonna get it.
He should get it. I think when they announce it, they give it to you, or how does it go? No, they announce it and then they vote on it to see who gets in.
Yeah, I don't think we learn who actually like made it until like closer to like sometime in the playoffs, like the Pro Bowl. I want to say, like if memory serves, I could.
And then they play the game this year, in the first preseason game in Alabama to showcase that.
Yeah. I could easily be wrong on that, but I'm actually going to steal one of Chris's questions real quick because you brought it up. At both the college and the NFL level, who are some of the most difficult guys to block?
College, it will still be DeMarcus Lawrence because going against him in practice every single day was really difficult. And one thing he was always great at, he's a lot of guys give up when they go do counter or on defense. When you block them, they'll give up if you block them after the first two moves. DeMarcus will keep going to a third move or fourth move, and then he has a great balance about him, so he never fell. So then from there, if you don't watch out, he's still waking up and he's still pursuing the quarterback or the running back, whichever mode you were in. He was good about keeping pursuit about whatever he was doing. And then you get to NFL, and everyone is taught to be that way. And so in my time, I mean, the hardest guys we blocked in Seattle, you go through Aaron Donald, you went through not Michael Brock. They had a D end. Robert Quinn was good. And the most athletic guy I probably saw across the board was Jadeveon Clowney when he played him against Houston. But everyone is going to be really athletic. Everybody gets better. At that point, it's just a matter of every little thing matters, from getting off the ball right, the timing of the snap, all the way to knowing your assignment so you don't get off or hesitant. When you know your assignment, you prepare right before the snap even goes off, that's when you succeed in the NFL. But in college, you get away with not knowing things and still being okay. But the guys in the NFL are so cold at what their job is that if they feel you don't know your job, they'll just use it as an advantage right away.
Well, I'm going to pass it off to Chris in just a second for some of his questions, but you alluded to like first and second moves, or then, of course, Lawrence pushing you to like the third or fourth move. What does that entail, like for the uninitiated?
So I would say a clean example would be imagine like if a lineman is rushing you in a pass pro and they rush out the ball and they bull rush you. If you stop the bull rush, most of them will just stop and call it a day.
Okay.
After that first move, they'll go into a counter, which they'll try to either rip away from you and create separation, or they'll do something. They'll do something to either try to make you be in a pressure position. And they just give up. Most of those guys never make it. Most guys you'll meet at this point are going to be the ones that do the first move, second move. And the first move, second move, if you get that, most guys will shut it off at that point. If you get the third move guy, now this guy just keeps going. He's like, hey, okay, you got that one? Oh, you got that? Okay, I'm gonna try this one. And that's what he was always like. It's also, if you see, it's also a testament as to why he's still playing.
Yeah. And so how do you as the lineman then like prepare for that like third or fourth move guy? Like you see on film, that's what's coming. Like, is there anything that you can do to like
Well, that I would say that's that is the love of the game. You're playing a guessing game because you don't know where your quarterback is at. You don't know where you don't know what he knows because he sees it. Your job is to play second. It's to react after he reacts. And that's the part where you gotta have fun and just enjoy the game. Because like, and then if you have a quarterback that's gonna scramble a lot and do a lot of crazy things, then it's even more of a difficult thing to know. That's how you end up with a holding calls, things going wrong or being a lot worse than they were before, just because you don't know how your quarterback is moving, but he knows.
ah. And actually, I'm sorry, I did have one more question before I turn it over to Chris. I'm sorry. This is for just the layperson who watches football from their couch. Like, how the heck do you judge good offensive line play? It's if the quarterback doesn't get sacked, right?
Um, yeah,
It's a little more
that's number
complicated than
one.
that, right?
I would say the good offensive line play is knowing how to hold your knee bend and staying in a squatting position the whole time as you're doing your run blocking or your pass pro. Bad offensive linemen, they have no stamina. And so imagine you start off in your squatting stance, which is like a 3-point stance. You have your hand on the ground. And as soon as the play begins, you start rising up and higher and higher and higher. You're not standing up all the way, but you're almost like barely squatting. But that's all you do all the time. Guys like that, the guys that get beat, because now all the lead linemen are taught so well to just stay low and go underneath your pads and lift you up. If they lift you up and blow you out of there, then those are the guys you see that get destroyed badly on film, and then they're cut. I guess now in college now they find a way to sway you out of your scholarship. But in terms of just like good old line play is truly determined based on can you knee bend and can you stay flexible, and then from that point on, can you punch and do separate? And I guess it's if you can punching is great, but also having long arms is a great thing to have because that determines like for me, I was always a short left tackle. I was like a short left tackle because I didn't really quote unquote have 6'5" or the perfect length that they have for the average left tackle. Those things will knock on you because they think that you can't touch the guy before he can get to you, and so they try to use those things against you on a draft board. But typically, a good old lineman, you almost want to have long arms and a not too tall of a torso. So at all times, no matter what, if it's squatting up or standing straight, you're never too stand. You're not the tallest guy in the building.
Okay. So if I see a bunch of standing O linemen, then I know we're in trouble.
If you got bad knee bend, they're tired and they're lazy and they got to work on staying down. Seriously, because you should be able to hold a squat and walk that duck walk for a long period of time. When you do that correctly, you shouldn't be getting tired of that quickly. But it's also very difficult to train that. But the best way, like I would train in the off season and know that, hey, like we're gonna do like up tempo, will be an up tempo offense. So I could go like the coaches will give you this for training. You go on the football field, you go every 5 yards, you run 5 yard, you go on the 5 yard line, you put your hand on the or whichever way your stance is. You do a rep of whatever you think that play is. So either you do a run block or a pass pro, then you run to the next 5, do another run or pass, run next 5, and all you're doing is doing a pass pro set or a run block set, run to the next 5. That is how we would train to program your body for doing football. But when I say it's difficult to do that, because now if you have somebody to catch, somebody who's going to hit you back, you can't train for that until that time comes. That's why camp is important. Getting good reps and practice is important. And at the end of the day, it just helps you get better. And then it's your job to know how to recover and get to be ready for the next day. And that's where I think I would say the NFL part separates that from college, because they expect you to do that on your own. And college will help you figure that out.
Okay. And that is why I played baseball. All right. Chris has a few questions for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rees. So I just want to know, what is the transition like going from a high school senior, you're living at home, mom's feeding you every night, and then you got to go to college, and they're going to be asking you to put on weight, but it's got to be healthy weight, not just weight. What does that look like? What's that, how much are you eating? How much are you hitting the weights? What's it like to build a college offensive lineman from a successful high school offensive lineman?
So I would say that my experience is different, because I started high school at 225, and I put on about 50 pounds in 3 months. Started playing left tackle, and then when I got to college, I was already at weight to not need any more weight. So my experience was a lot more about maintaining. But as you go through college, the one thing that they train you on is, as you fuel your body, you get away from the junk food and you get away from things that are not going to be as helpful to you. So instead of, like, you're going to go get a burrito, the fast food burrito versus that random, we used to have a lot of like little mom and pop shops that you get food from. It'd be easier for you and healthier for you to get that mom and pop burrito versus that Taco Bell burrito. And so
what was the best burrito in Boise?
Yeah.
Oh man, Bad Boys.
Oh yeah.
Between Bad Boys and what's the one next to off of right by the Shell gas station by the school? It's across from Starbucks.
Shoot. Well, so much has changed in that spot.
Oh, it has.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of oh no, there used to be like I think the Qdoba is there, but that's Burger Belly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Burger Belly, and the other one would probably be the two that I would state to be. I don't think anybody had a problem. I can't think of anything that was better than that. Those two are probably it.
Yeah.
Okay. But sorry, I interrupted. Continue.
Oh, you're good, man. That was a good question. So coming into this season for Boise State, we got several guys that last year was their first year starting, and they were wildly successful, really. But in your experience, what was the biggest difference from year 1 to year 2 as a starter?
I would say my biggest difference that I think everybody has to go through is a question in your heart of, can I really do this? And as that gets answered in your heart and it gets a lot easier, then that really just changes. It's almost like the perspective of whatever you're doing gets easier. You do the same thing year in and year out. Nothing changes. The only thing that's added on is, hey, like, oh, I know this, I know that. And so now each time you revisit it, you're not revisiting, learning a whole entire thing. Your heart and your mind is piecing different things in there every single time. And so one year it might be trying to figure out the playbook, and then once you got the playbook down, then the next year it's like, oh, let me go fast, start doing every single thing. And simple progressions like that is how you get better. But you also got to learn how to put the time in to know what you're missing out on to get better on. And that's even a more difficult game for people to learn, like, hey, like, I suck at this. Let me get that part better. It's almost like if you think of like a smaller example like basketball, like, hey, like, I'm not good at free throws, and it's been 10 years in the league and I'm still not good at free throws. It's like, what are you doing? Have you been practicing, or what part of it is that you're not getting right to get better? It's things like that that I would say is the difference between the high school, college, and NFL. The window to fix it is shorter, and then you have to know how to fix it. They could point it out to you over and over, but you have to know how to go to practice and like, hey, let me go try to fail differently. And that's the part that a lot of people have a hard time doing.
I like that. Try to fail differently. That's a good quote there. I'm going to try and do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
um, all right. So you graduated, came out 3 years as a starter, first team Mountain West All Conference, 2015 Outland Trophy watch list. I mean, you must have been looking at the NFL. What was that for the Joe Schmo at home like me? Give me a behind the scenes, like what's that like getting ready for the combine? Also, I mean, you got drafted by Seattle. Did you think you were going to get drafted by Seattle? Were you looking somewhere else? What's that? What was that like?
I know. I was hoping he'd get drafted by Seattle.
I'm sure you were.
So I would say, in those, if you were to look at the entire journey from, I say most people, I would say, let's say like, there's gonna be a coach in your life at some point. I don't know when you start your journey. For me, it was high school. A coach will approach you, I don't know when, and then start saying, "Hey, like, I think you're really good enough to make it to the NFL." And people start sparking that idea in your heart over and over and over, to where you'll start going, "Oh, it actually should be possible." And I started having that from my sophomore year on, still not even understanding like what everything was yet.
Is that your
And
sophomore year in college or high school?
high school,
Got it.
Nice.
like after my first year, people started telling me that, and I was like, I think I suck. I'm not doing nothing good. I don't see what you guys see, but they see something and they start telling you. And now you have this feeling in your heart that you have to get to this level, or what you do is not going to be good enough. And then as you go on that journey, you start trying to like just see, can I really get to that? And then as you go through it, so then you start questioning, like, am I strong enough? And as I was going through it, the things that make your heart feel confident, like I'm in the weight room and then I'm the strongest. Then you just keep showing up in the top 3, top 5 of things over and over and over. And then eventually you have to go like, okay, like, do I really believe it, or has it just been hype? Because early on, I would hear it early on, and then it was like, are they just hyping me up to make me feel better, or are they actually like being real that this is actually going to be a real thing to be, like I can make happen? And then all of a sudden, I'm 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". Then I'm okay. Like, if I look on the thing, everybody's 6'4". Like, and now I know I'm tall enough. And then it's like, okay, am I strong enough? Can I move people? Then I go do. Then you start, all those little things start adding up in your head. Can I? As you knock them out and accomplish them, it helped me get confidence to know that, okay, like I really can. And I kept on going. Next thing you know, I'm like, I think I'm actually better than most. And then by the time I got to getting out of college, it was agents are calling you up and talking to you. And then now it's like, hey, like, the thing that like an insurance policy that company started offering me, that they saw me as a second round value and above. And then that makes you even feel more confident. But at this point, it's been great hype. I've gone like first team here, all conference and those things. So like the hype is now kind of being matched with what I think I could do. And now you're hoping that you can keep piecing it all together over and over and over as the days and the years go by, with still knowing that this has been a 10-year journey and I still don't know. And then by the time you get to senior year, though, at that point, I think it was by the time I got to junior year when we won the Fiesta Bowl, I knew I belonged and I knew I could play and I knew I could do everything better than most. And then going to senior year, I got first round grades, and then until I broke my legs and I went third round. That was the only thing that seemed to have been the one thing I can never control. I keep getting hurt over and over and over in some random way that it's almost like a impossible thing to dodge, because every time there's been a fractured bones, it's been pretty much fractured bones, or it's been fractures. I've never really had soft tissue issues. Everything's been like, hey, this is broke. You can't move that until for 6 to 8 weeks. And so it sucks. I'm laughing about it now, but in the journey, you go as hard as you can, having faith in something that you don't know how it's going to turn out. And as the injuries happen and all the negative things are there more than the positive, you just keep trying to push forward. And so when I got to the end, I got hurt, and then I still got the combine invite. Those things come out of nowhere, and they really like give you a sense of joy and relief because it's almost like I've been putting all this work and all this time, and I have no clue what's supposed to come at the end of it. And now you're falling at the last year, hoping it all goes right. Then you break your leg. Then I'm in a cast and a boot, heading to the combine. I think all I did was a bench. I did the medicals and then all the psych evals. And so now I'm nervous because all they see me is in the boot and the cast, and like this kid can't walk. What's he going to do anytime soon? And now I'm trying to convince him that my head is correct and like I'm like locked in. Like I know it's been rough, but it hasn't wavered me. So I try to convince him all those type of things. And then at that point, I'm still nervous because at that point I've had 3 different agents all give me like a third round and above. Like nobody's giving nothing sloppy. And then I got hurt and I was like, oh man, now I don't know what's going to happen. And so now I'm in this nervous mode of what do I do? What do I do? And so the only thing I know I could do is focus on getting healthy. And so that's the only thing we put our time and efforts into. And then when we got to, I think once we got to Indy, if I'm correct, and I got through all the first phases, I started healing up and getting better. And like once again, you start feeling more confident, like things are going to be all right. And once I got done with all those things, I was able to get to the Boise State or the Boise Combine or the Pro Day. And that time was the first time Seattle and I had contact. Because the whole combine and everything, all the people that had an interview or chat with me, I had. It was such a weird thing. So everybody that I met with at the combine, I never did a team visit with when I was going to do my visits and my interviews. So like before you get drafted, everybody does a couple of different interviews with teams. I never had one connection with anybody that I met at the combine in the interview rooms. And then Seattle never talked to me at all the entire time. Didn't know who they were. And then Pro Day shows up and they got their start there. Nobody flies their O-line coach out until they're serious about you. And then I was like, oh, hey, Cable, knowing him, I know how he moves. So I'm like, this guy's not going to show no face about this coming until the last second. And then boom, he's there. I was like, oh.
That's awesome.
We did the Pro Day stuff, and then at this point, I'm still not sure. And then right before the draft happened that week, I think almost all 32 teams call me. They get your number and and then they kind of give you a chat. And all of them are very confident on me for some. And I'm not confident because I'm like my ankle is broken. I could barely walk. I don't know if I'm gonna make the season ready. And so I'm with that in my mind, and they're all calling me with confidence. Hey, don't worry, you'll be drafted. Don't worry, you'll be drafted. They all say the same thing over and over. I don't know who that guy was for the team, but he's like, just don't worry, you'll be drafted. I don't know if I was coming off like being down and all or not, but they all would just call and say that and hang up. And so I knew first round was over, and then from that point on, I was just in Seattle hanging out with my best friend, and then boom, but the entire time I had no clue, no contact. There was absolutely nothing that showed any interest for me to know that was going to happen until right when it did.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were in Seattle when you got.
Yeah, so my roommate, he lives in Bellevue, so I was literally right down the street. And when the call came, the next Sunday, I just drove down there and said, say hi to everybody.
It's meant to be.
Yeah,
it was wild.
All right, Evan, that's my part there, man.
All right. Well, I've got a few fun ones to kind of round us out here. So going back to college and the Boise State Broncos, are there any current Broncos that are really catching your eye that you're really excited to watch this season, whether that's O-line or just the team in general?
I think I've kept track for most guys personally until I don't know them for the most part anymore. I still watch and look, and I think I repost to like do things that should show like interest with the things I like, but I haven't done like no deep dive to know who's there anymore. Since NIL, I don't know if guys stay long enough for me to know if they're gonna be there. Wow. And so I don't know how to play the game anymore because when the last quarterback was there last year, I was following him and everything. All of a sudden, I look on the Instagram and it's all red, and I'm like, oh. And now, every time I follow anybody, for the most part, they end up. I look a little bit later, and it's completely different. And so I'm like, I don't know what.
Well, if you subscribe to the Bronco Country Roundup, we can keep you informed.
Oh, I definitely will. But hey, the best thing though I'll say is that what I see that I love is they all love the new coach. They all showing like a whole fire for him that we haven't seen in a long time. So I'm hoping that just stays ignited and keeps going.
I love that, and there is a lot of energy coming out of camp. That this team, that there's hype again in Boise, and that feels like I can feel it, the fan base can feel it, and like
That's good.
I'm excited for this season. So then, what are some of your fondest memories from your time in Boise?
Fondest memories would be floating the river and any activity where we all just got to hang out with our teammates outside of I'd say outside of sports. Because football is like one thing where it's like it's organized and all that happens. But I would say Boise, unlike most places that I've seen so far based on other people's chatter, we did a really good job of hanging out together and being good teammates. So I don't know how to describe that besides like we were all really good friends at all points of time. I can't think of anybody on the team that I didn't hang out with at one point or the other.
That's
and then you get to the pros, and it's like just completely business.
Yeah, and I don't know when the last time you were in Boise was, but it has changed quite a bit. So that could have been you guys could have hung out at Top Golf instead of Burger Belly.
Yeah, a lot's changed.
Yeah.
When was the last time you got to Boise, Rees? Are you going to make it for a game soon?
I need to work on that. I keep saying that, and then I get distracted with something else, and nothing ever happens.
Life happens, dude. I get it.
Speaking of that, did I see you got married?
I did, and my window is kind of coming up short on that for this interview.
All right. Well, last thing then, what advice would you give to an incoming lineman out of high school?
What I would say is make sure when you gain your weight, you're eating correctly, and you work on getting proper bending in your hips and bending in your knees. Because later on, those are the things that are going to determine how long you play.
All right.
That's
perfect. Awesome. Well, Rees, thank you so much for your time. We'll let you get back to that wife of yours and go Broncos.
Go Broncos. Hey, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Of course.
You guys take care.
You too.